Maybe I should talk loudly. Novel concept.
Novel coronavirus?
Novel coronavirus, indeed.
Welcome to Namely 90s. Wow. The podcast that takes you back to the time before smartphones, Google, and Y2K. Join your hosts as they relive the pop culture that shaped a generation and the parts that many people wish they could forget. Listen in to the conversation about how the decade defined those who spent their childhood there and how it shaped them as adults. So, turn down the grunge and dial up the internet. Let's get started. It's time for Namely 90s.
That's right. You're listening to Namely 90s. My name's Andrew, and over there is Brandon.
Hi. I mean, that's me.
A little rusty there. Anyway, you can find us online at namely90s.com or on Twitter and Instagram at namely90s with a 90s. This show is also on YouTube every Monday, and you can find that at namely90s.com/YouTube. Finally, find our Patreon page if you'd like to support this podcast at patreon.com/namely90s. And here we are again. It has been a bit. What's new with you?
Well, I'm just dead. Because I'm going on vacation next week.
Yeah.
Which how is it vacation if I don't have an actual job? But I'm going out of town next week, and I've been killing myself to get everything done before Tuesday because I'm leaving Wednesday, and I don't know what time it is anymore. I'm falling asleep at random times during the day.
Perfect.
I'm staying up until like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I'm trying to get 2 to 3 weeks ahead on Rewind, as well as I think a week or two ahead on Namely 90s. And I also just finished my last chemistry test before recording this for the little certificate, the little extended education stuff I'm doing right now. And what else? Oh, I made I had to cut together a little 90-second video for a contest I was entering. That's due by Wednesday, so a lot getting done this weekend, and I am dead. So
you've been busy, and sure, it's not vacation. It's called being unemployed, but somewhere else temporarily. I guess.
Yeah, visiting family. So it's
yes,
definitely not vacation.
Yeah, I hear you. It can be a little taxing at times to be with family, but yet fun.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love seeing my family. It's just, it's not what you think of when you think of vacation.
Well, it's like when we used to come back from when I was in vet school, we used to come back to the west side of the state to like visit with people. Mm-hmm. And it was a vacation, but it kind of wasn't, because you spent the whole time like doing this, doing that, going to this, seeing these people. Like you didn't actually rest, Right. Exactly.
So that is the exact point.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, we are experiencing a severe heat wave. I know it's not much for you down there in California or whatever, but I
mean, literally everywhere outside of the city that I'm in, it's like 100 degrees, but it's only 80 right here.
Yeah, it's 108 here today.
Wow.
And we'll be over 100 for the next week, which, fortunately out here, a lot of people have air conditioning, so it's not bad, but it is truly sweltering. And it's been quite interesting. This little office sure is warm, but it's okay. It's the middle of the day. I don't know why I'm in here. I do. There's a reason, but
I'm surprised they don't have some AC in there.
Did I remember when I told you that I was surprised that my internet hadn't been disconnected because I hadn't made a payment in a really long time?
Yes.
It's because I turned auto pay on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was like, that makes sense, because I can never log into my Spectrum internet account ever, because every single time I try to log in, I can't remember my password. It makes me reset my password, but you can't use a password you've used in the last 5 tries.
Right.
So it's always a disaster. I can never get into my Spectrum. So that's why I set it to auto. But speaking of the hot weather, yesterday, Kayla volunteered for the Coeur d'Alene Ironman race, which is it's a swim that's over a mile, I think, a bike ride that's over 100 miles, and then a marathon. And you do all three in a day continuously in 100-degree heat. It was pretty dicey. Like, I wouldn't recommend exercising that much to anyone, but certainly not in 100-degree weather.
How many people passed out? Well,
I don't know, but it's a pretty big event, like thousands of racers. So,
Ironmans are popular.
But it was like my worst nightmare. I had to drive down a windy road to get to the aid station they were working at with like cyclists flanking me on either side. It was not my favorite thing at all.
Yikes.
But yeah, it was pretty interesting. So
did her dad?
No, he was just volunteering. I don't know. I think he's done them before. He just didn't do this one. I'm not sure the exact reason, or if he just wanted to come help out, but it was nice to have him visit for a little bit, even though I saw him for like 3 hours because I was working overnight.
I was like, that took a while to register since he doesn't live over in Idaho.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah. So it's been eventful these last couple of weeks. Shall we move on to talk about what was happening in July of 1998?
Sure. Travel back with me, listeners, if you will, to July 1998. On the 1st, the NBA starts a player lockout when a salary dispute is made, and it lasts 204 days. Also on the 1st, singer Barbra Streisand marries actor James Brolin. On the 2nd, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is published in the UK. On the 4th, Malia Obama is born. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
On the 6th, Roy Rogers, I have American Cowboy with a question mark in parentheses here, passes away. On the 8th, Roy Rogers, there's a cocktail named after him. It's not so much a cocktail as a virgin cocktail that you give to children, but anyway.
Roy Rogers is definitely a cocktail, but what's in it? I can't remember.
It's like soda water and cherry juice, isn't it?
I'll look into that.
Okay. On the 8th, Jaden Smith is born, son of Will Smith, and star of The Karate Kid.
It is. Oh, sorry. I found it. It's a mixed drink, non-alcoholic mixed drink made of cola and grenadine syrup garnished with a maraschino cherry.
I was right about the grenadine.
Good work.
More or less. And out of order, on the 7th, the 69th MLB All-Star Game is played. The AL wins 13-8 with the highest scoring All-Star game ever. On the 14th, F-Zero X for the Nintendo 64 is released in Japan. And on the 24th, Bindi Irwin is born. That's daughter of Steve Irwin. Just got married.
Well, congratulations on the nuptials.
Yeah, or she had a baby, one or the other. She might have had a baby because she was getting married.
Whoops.
I meant to say that the other way around.
Congratulations on the new baby.
Yes. Well, it might have been a year at this point.
Okay.
It's been a while. Yeah. TV premiering and ending in July of 1998. We have on the 4th, X-Play premieres on ZDTV, which eventually becomes G4. And on the 19th, Oh Yeah Cartoons on Nickelodeon premieres. And then ending on the 17th, we have Family Matters on their final season that was shifted to CBS. In the box office, on the 1st, we have Armageddon. On the 10th, we have Lethal Weapon 4, Madeline, and Small Soldiers. On the 15th, there's Something About Mary. On the 17th, The Mask of Zorro. On the 24th, we have Saving Private Ryan. On the 29th, we have the Lindsay Lohan starring Parent Trap. And on the 31st, we have Ever After. And finally, in the Billboard charts, number 1 for July 1998, in from the beginning of June and through the end of August, The Boy's Mind by Brandy and Monica. Also, and for the third or second week in July, number 2 is You're Still the One by Shania Twain. Number 3 is Adia by Sarah McLachlan. That's number 5 is Adia by Sarah McLachlan. Number 10 is Everybody by the Backstreet Boys. Number 14 is Truly Madly Deeply by Savage Garden. And number 17 is Sex and Candy by Marcy's Playground. I actually got a good tip on Twitter today. It was suggested that we make a Spotify playlist for each episode for the Billboard chart stuff.
Oh, no, that's really smart.
Yeah. Shout out to Greg and Maggie for that tip there.
What up, Greg and Maggie?
Now let's toss across the pond to our friends Gaz and Dange at the Insanely Dangerous Retro Pod Show for what was happening way back when in the UK in July 1998.
Good evening. Here are your headlines from July 1998. Gerard Houllier is appointed joint manager of Liverpool. Manchester United deny reports joining a proposed European Super League. So Graham Norton debuts on Channel 4. Deeper Underground hits number 1. Godzilla hits the UK cinemas.
Super terrific work there from the Retro Monthinator. Okay, let's send this stateside to those namely boys. Pronto, Danger Man.
And if you're interested in following up on those headlines, you can check out Gaz and Dange's episode from this Thursday of the Insanely Dangerous Retro Segment Show by checking out the Insanely Dangerous Retro Pod Show on your favorite podcasting app. You'll also find that Andrew and I are doing a fun segment at the end of their episode called Quotely 90s, where we give them a quote and see if they can figure out what we're going to be talking about on the following Monday. So an extra reason to go and listen and get an idea of what will be coming up on Namely 90s. And now back to the show.
So this All-Star game.
Yeah.
They all won 13-8. That's pretty impressive.
13-8, highest scoring All-Star game.
Who was the pitching staff of the National League, the Seattle Mariners pitching staff? Oh, burn. I know that doesn't work, but I'm still saying it.
Fair enough.
I have too much fun. No,
I played that straight as long as I could.
Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about here. Saving Private Ryan, it's another, Tom Hanks movie, right?
Is he in it?
Isn't he the main guy?
I thought Private Ryan was the one. No, I've actually never seen that movie.
No, it's definitely Tom Hanks. He's not Ryan. He's Captain Miller.
He's the one that's trying to save.
But we just watched The Terminal with Tom Hanks in it. That's a good movie. Have you seen that?
No. The last airport movie I watched was the one with George Clooney and Andrew Kendrick.
Oh,
but The Terminal is the one where he's the national that his country
like kind of it's in a revolution, so they don't recognize his country, and so he's stuck there for so much time in the terminal. But it's weird that you mentioned George Clooney because that movie, The Terminal, has Catherine Zeta-Jones in it. And last night we watched Ocean's 12, which also has George Clooney and Catherine Zeta-Jones in it.
You know what also has Catherine Zeta-Jones in it?
The T-Mobile commercials, like from 15 years ago?
No, The Mask of Zorro.
Or Sprint. Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was Antonio Banderas and Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Oh. And Matt Damon was also obviously in Ocean's 12. So
I thought you were about to say he was obviously in The Mask of Zorro. I'm like,
he clearly was. No, anyway, The Terminal is a fun movie. I enjoyed it. Stanley Tucci, directed by Steven Spielberg. Pretty good. Recommend it.
Nice. That is your non-90s movie recommendation.
Dang it. That's 2004. Yeah, Andrew's non-90s movie recommendation. We start off every show with that.
Wait, Ocean's 12 or Terminal?
The Terminal.
That's 2004? No way.
Ocean's 12 is 2004 as well.
The Terminal is 2004.
It could be 2003. Ocean's 12 is 04. The Terminal, 04.
Really? I thought that was last decade.
No, I usually don't know anything, but those ones I actually knew because I've seen them recently.
That is fun. You should make your own 2000s like aughts podcast.
2000 movie recommendations podcast where I just complain about everything for 20 minutes and then talk about.
Well, since you're now just catching up on 2000s movies.
Yeah.
It could be a Patreon exclusive.
It's true.
All right. Did you want to talk any further about Saving Private Ryan, or was that just a Tom
I haven't
Hanks?
seen it. Haven't seen it. It's just Tom Hanks. I just remembered Tom Hanks is in it. Well, okay. Well, wasn't it also directed? It was also directed by Steven Spielberg.
That's a good point. Okay. Well, while we're on movies that we've hardly seen or remember, I remember The Mask of Zorro, since you brought up Catherine Zeta-Jones, very vaguely, but I remember it being like a big thing at the time because they're like, "Oh, Zorro's back," and I think that was like the first movie I really noticed Catherine Zeta-Jones in from my memory. But also,
did she just kind of fall off the face of the earth? By the way,
well, she got married to what's his face.
She was like mega popular in the late 90s, early 2000s, and you just don't hear much from her anymore, I don't think.
Unless it's a heist movie. She got married to... Who did she get married to? She got married to Michael Douglas in the year 2000. And then... This
podcast is now just an episode where we look stuff up.
Well, in the late 2000s, she had a decrease in workload and returned to the stage.
She's still married to Michael Douglas.
She was in the sequel to Mask of Zorro.
All right.
Wow. Apparently she returned to acting on stage.
Yeah, I like her and stuff.
Yeah, she's a person that plays things. Mask of Zorro. Did you ever watch The Mask of Zorro?
No.
Anthony Hopkins was in it. Do you know who Zorro is?
No.
You don't know Zorro?
I think you meant, do I know the actor who plays him?
Well, it's Antonio Banderas, but I already said that.
Oh, did you? It's a swashbuckler film. I don't even know what that means.
It's a sword fighter.
Oh, gosh, I'm just learning so much today.
So I remember The Mask of Zorro because Zorro was like an old school masked vigilante that they used to. They made older Zorro films, if I remember correctly, and then what he would do, he would slice a Z in people's shirts or when fighting them because he was Zorro.
Right.
And then
I do remember that.
A reference you might understand. Antonio Banderas was later cast as Puss in Boots in Shrek.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And he basically they take a lot from the Zorro character.
So basically, the movie Puss in Boots is an American feline swashbuckling comedy animation movie.
I mean, can you really call it a comedy?
No.
I guess if you have to call us comedians, you could call that a comedy.
Yeah, no, I try not to call us that because I don't think I'm consistently funny enough to use that designation.
That's fair. Wow, I didn't mean to agree with you there, though. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you pretty much suck. So no, it's fine. It's fine. I understand.
I'm a little tired.
Self-deprecation is an important part of comedy, by the way.
You know, is it now? I feel like there's been a shift. Like our era definitely relies on self-deprecation.
Yeah, but if you think you're funny, then you're just kind of a douche.
That's true.
If you just think you're hilarious.
Then you're Dane Cook.
Yeah.
Timely 2000s Dane Cook reference.
Timely 2000s. Yeah, that's what we can call the new podcast.
The next season 2, Timely 2000s. Mask of Zorro. I remember nothing about this movie other than Antonio Banderas takes his sword and slices off Catherine Zeta-Jones's clothes progressively during a scene where they run into each other.
That's sexual assault.
Yes.
That's all that is.
We're adding this to the board of problematic 1990s movies.
Yeah. Jeez.
Oh, speaking, that was the other thing I did. I guested on a podcast, season 3 of that's 90s Action All the Time.
Oh yeah,
but which the episode won't come out until September. But we got to some problematic parts of Escape from LA. So
apologies to the guys over there. I could not make it. I was recovering from an overnight shift. So hope you had fun.
Scott was the only one that could make it out of their
Woo.
crew. But it was a good time. It was like hosting a podcast with you, except I was you and he was me. I don't know what that means or how you want to read into it.
I don't either.
So we're just going in reverse order. Do you remember Small Soldiers? Let's go.
No, I don't remember that one.
This is just going to be movies. This entire episode is movies until we get to the TV show. Small Soldiers was a 1998 American science fiction action film. It was, I don't know how to. It depicts two factions of toys programmed with military microprocessors that one turns violent and they start fighting each other. It's like Toy Story, except if it was a violent, gritty movie. And if I remember correctly, it was the last on-screen appearance of Phil Hartman. And it starred Kirsten Dunst. And I don't remember anything else other than Kirsten Dunst was in it. So I watched it because I had a crush on her as a kid.
Of course.
Jumanji, that episode of Star Trek, Small Soldiers.
And the episode of ER.
Right. Well, I didn't watch those until recently. So it'd be weird to say I had a crush on her in that because she's like 12.
True.
But back then I was younger than her. Well, whatever. Anyway, it's a terrible, terrible movie. Tommy Lee Jones is one of the voices of the toys.
Cool. I like Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, it's it has a 48% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is surprising because
wow, I
remember it being terrible. It's just Dennis Leary's in it. Oh wow. It's I don't want to talk about it more. It was
okay. Let's not.
I remember it. I remember it being bad. I remember it being.
I remember it being bad. That's funny.
Yes. Speaking of things that are bad, let's move on to Disney's The Parent Trap. From
isn't that the one where Lindsay Lohan had a twin, but she doesn't actually have a twin?
Exactly. Well,
okay.
In real life, that is a correct statement. In the movie, she does have a twin.
Well, yeah, she doesn't have an imaginary twin that she's made up in her mind. That's right. True.
The Parent Trap is a 1998 American romantic comedy film. Do you remember who else is in this?
No, but could you imagine the legal bills if you had Lindsay Lohan twins?
Oh God, yeah.
Anyway, no, I don't remember who's in this movie.
So it is Lindsay Lohan stars as both twins, which was the first heavy use of split screen that was done well in American film. I remember that being like a featurette that they're like, see Lindsay Lohan act against herself in an amazing way. And it's just like,
what if, and just hear me out, they just cast twins?
That would have made more sense. Like, what if it was the Olsen twins?
Just like the amount of effort they probably had to go to make one person look like twins, just to get twins.
I bet you that they could have paid Mary-Kate and Ashley enough to do this.
Probably.
And while they do look slightly different than each other at the time, not as much. Like,
do the kids have to be identical for the plot to work?
Yes, okay. Because so what happens is, when they're like babies or whatever, the parents divorce and they each took one twin and never told the other twin about the fact that they have a sibling.
God, these people are monsters,
right?
I wonder she needs so much therapy.
They never meet their other parent. They just by happenstance go to the same. I think it was like summer camp, even though one lives in England and one lives in California.
I was going to say, hey, maybe move further apart, or maybe don't send your kid back to the States or England for camp.
They both went to the same summer camp in Maine, which why? Why would you send your London-raised girl to Maine for a summer camp?
I don't know.
I want her to go to New England to get an appreciation for old England. That speaking of bad British accents, that is one of the memorable parts is that Lindsay Lohan's British accent is
Rubbish.
terrible. Yes, rubbish. But the plot, Dennis Quaid's the dad, and he has like a fiance or something, or he gets engaged while the girls in summer camp, and then that's where they make the swap, and then they return home. And they're like, we have to stop our dad from finding happiness and get back with our mother instead of marrying this new woman who happens to be a child-hating gold digger. But regardless.
Speaking of British people, can I just say how it's funny that they call garbage cans dust bins?
Yes.
Dust
you
bin.
may say that. Or rubbish bin.
Or rubbish container. Yeah.
I always liked pepper pot for a pepper shaker.
Oh yeah.
What's the other one?
Bum bag for fanny pack.
Yes. We never got our Insanely Dangerous Retro Pod Show bum bag, by the way.
It could be part of our merch. We can have a Namely 90s bum bag /
it's reversible.
Fanny packs are coming back, though. I don't know if you've seen that more recently, but
yeah. Well, all 90s trends are coming back right now.
True.
That's the cycle of things. Yeah. So, they torture this fiance because she's a child hater, and eventually get their parents back together at the end.
Wow, they're still horrible people, though.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't want their parents to be happy. Well, they do. They want their parents' to be happy. They don't want them to be happy with anyone else. That's actually any story of children of divorce, isn't it? Shout out to all of our divorced children out there.
Yeah, shout out to everyone in the mid 80s whose parents got divorced.
Or 90s, I think.
The whole thing, kind of like the big influx of that happening was, I think, in the 80s, but you're right. I think it carried through to the 90s.
Well, I just meant in reference to the Parent Trap.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Going from the Parent Trap to There's Something About Mary.
Ben Stiller zips his penis up into his zipper on his pants.
And he jerks off in the bathroom before a date and gets some white stuff on his hair that Cameron Diaz thinks is hair gel, and then puts in her hair, and it makes it stand up for the rest of the
dear. That's some
evening.
Slapstick comedy. Who else is in that?
Matt Dillon's in it. Chris Elliott, Lee Evans.
Nope.
That's
Chris Elliott. Those people.
You'd know Chris Elliott.
All right.
Matt Dillon, you'd recognize him. He's the kind of has the large forehead. Let's see. Anyone? Jeffrey Tambor's in it. Keith David's in it. Sarah Silverman's in it. Harlan Williams. Condi Alexander.
Oh, I know her from ER.
Exactly. Brett Favre is in it at some point.
Of course, because why not?
Well, Mary has an ex-boyfriend named Brett. And we will find out that it's Brett Favre himself. He was big in the late 90s. I always forget that. Yeah. So I don't know. Have you ever seen this movie?
No.
I didn't think so. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I don't really. I mean, basically, if I remember correctly, Ben Stiller's character was in love with this. His dream girl is Mary, played by Cameron Diaz. That's when he gets his scrotum stuck in his zipper and is hospitalized when they're in high school, and he's about to go on a prom date with her. And then they which cancels their date, and they lose contact. And then he finds her later when they're 29-ish. When he hires a private investigator to track her down.
That's creepy.
Yeah, completely. And then there's just like a slew of other obsessive boyfriends over her, or ex-boyfriends. And it like one of them's pretending to be I think one of them's pretending to be disabled, I think, to
no,
has
can't
some
do
sort
that.
of has some sort of, I think he pretends to walk with, I think he tends to have like polio or something to that sort of muscle degeneration, that he walks with the arm crutches.
Yeah.
But he's actually just an able-bodied American pizza delivery boy. There's a lot. Should we post this back on the 90s board of insensitive and inappropriateness?
Yeah. What else should we talk about? Anything? Or why are we on time?
We're around, but we do still. Did we talk about Armageddon?
No, we can talk about Armageddon. Bruce Willis.
Was that Armageddon?
No.
Ben Affleck.
Sorry. Which one was Bruce Willis in?
The other one, wasn't it?
No, it was Armageddon.
It was Armageddon. Oh, he was the father.
Yeah.
He's Liv Tyler's father. So Armageddon. You wanna take this one?
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it has that really intense Aerosmith song that's like somehow associated with the movie. I don't know if it came out for the movie.
Oh yeah, it did.
It did. I don't want to miss a thing.
Yeah, so it's Bruce Willis is the father to Liv Tyler's character, and Ben Affleck is like one of his drilling partners or something, and wants to bang his daughter.
That term "drilling partner" is not something I want to hear much of again.
If I remember correctly, so there's a meteor that's going to crash into Earth, and they need to go into space and drill into it. So they hire a bunch of miners to go and do this. Did it take them
a year to convince people that there was actually something coming because they didn't believe scientists?
No, this was the 90s. People believed in science, apparently.
Oh, and scientists still worked at like the CDC, for example.
Right. Instead of a private organization.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it stars Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck, Billy Bob Thornton, Liv Tyler, Owen Wilson, Will Patton. Who else do I know?
Steve Buscemi,
Michael Clark Duncan. Oh, and Steve Buscemi and Keith David. Odds are he died at some point.
William Fichtner seems familiar too.
And I forgot it's a Michael Bay movie, which explains why when the space shuttles are launching into space, they do a barrel roll around each other. Literally, anytime you see a space shuttle on this stupid film, they are barrel rolling and like twisting around each other. It is the stupidest waste of fuel and lack of physics that you will. I mean, there's probably worse, but it's.
Anytime a small speck of debris like falls off, every time anything hits the ground, it explodes into a giant fireball. Because
Michael Bay. But so in one of, for those of you that don't know, I went to school for aerospace engineering before I left to become a winemaker. And in one of, I think it was one of our astro classes, astronautical engineering classes, we would have a it was like a 2-hour lecture, so we would have a break in between at the 1 hour mark, and our professor would show us clips from Armageddon and point out exactly every single thing wrong and why it infuriates her so. So that's transferred on to me with the hate for this movie's terrible physics and lack of space knowledge. It's all explained because it's Michael Bay. This also came out the same year Deep Impact came out.
Oh, jeez.
Which sadly was more scientifically accurate.
That happens a lot where like two movies that are similar come out. Like What are the two movies where they like take over the White House?
White House Down, or
White House Down and
Olympus Has Fallen.
Same year.
Yeah, or the Pierce Brosnan Mount St. Helens movie.
Oh, Dante's Peak. It was
Dante's Inferno.
It wasn't Mount St. Helens.
Was it Peak? Oh.
Dante's Peak was about a fictional volcano in Wallace, Idaho that explodes.
Okay.
Wallace is real. Fictional volcano is fictional, obviously.
And then there was another one like Volcano or something that came out at the same time.
Dante's Peak was choice.
It was Peak Brosnan.
Peak Brosnan? Dante's Peak Brosnan?
Wheel of Fortune before and after.
That reminds me, have you seen that GIF where it's like a little husky puppy falling down the stairs, but it's the Michael Bay version? So when it hits the bottom step, it just explodes into a ball of flames.
No, I have not. Well, yeah, you might have sent that to me before. All right. Before we finish, we got to talk about Family Matters.
And I have one more thing after that before we go into the outro.
Okay. But first, Family Matters. I never knew that it switched from. So at the end of 1997. The contract that between ABC, Disney, and whoever was producing like Family Matters, Step by Step, all those shows ended, and they didn't want to renew because they had their own original Disney programming since Disney had purchased ABC since TGIF started, and so they shipped. So they, instead of canceling these shows, they got picked up by CBS, and CBS was trying to steal the original TGIF lineup, essentially. But I don't think they promoted it well because no one knew that it had switched to CBS. So after a year, it just kind of died.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Family Matters. Do you remember this show? It was.
Yeah, I remember the dad's name was Carl.
Yep.
He was the cop from Die Hard. Same actor. I forget his name.
Same actor. It was. Isn't that Reginald VelJohnson?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So this was a spin-off from the ABC sitcom Perfect Strangers, but eventually it just became the Steve Urkel show because Jaleel White played Steve Urkel, the annoying next door neighbor nerd that was like, "Did I do that?" Which was his catchphrase. And it was.
I don't really understand the character.
You don't understand the character of Steve Urkel? Like, he was into the girl next door.
But why? And why did he look that way?
Because he was a nerd, and it was the 90s, and well, technically it started in 89. So it
that was nerd back then. Okay,
that's what people thought nerd was back then. And that's what they.
That hasn't aged well, has it?
Not really, no, but. It hasn't aged, period, if you look at the nerds in Big Bang Theory.
Oy.
Yeah. So, it was a series about a family and
the matters of that family.
Exactly.
If you will.
He, Chicago police officer, and it was, I cannot tell you a single plot that I remember except Steve Urkel would sometimes take a potion that turned him into Smooth Urkel or something like that. It's where he would no longer need his glasses. He would stand up straight. He wouldn't, his clothes would transform, I think.
Without getting too deep, I have to say, isn't it interesting that two of the most popular sitcoms in the 1990s featured black families?
Yeah. That
seems ahead of its time.
True. But
we were still horrible in a lot of other ways. So.
And then it kind of just disappeared for a little while.
We were going hard on the homophobia and fat jokes in the mid 90s. So it was kind of okay.
Well, I mean, they were presented I know you didn't want to go deep, but they like Family Matters and the Cosbys were presented as like some people would say whitewashed.
I was just going to say, I would tend to agree where it's like it represents like, I know what you're saying. It's whitewashed.
And we don't really know enough to speak on it, but
no.
But as the decade went on, BET came about, and UPN started making more accessible shows for people of color that were closer to.
Well, yeah, and just even like the set design and the writing, has to take that into consideration. That's the other thing.
Yeah, because Family Matters basically looked like any other 80s sitcom.
Yeah.
And so did The Cosby Show.
Absolutely.
Unless you were thinking about Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
No, I mean, any of them, really. I mean,
yeah. Well, you said
culturally,
two.
There's just different tastes in artwork and decor and things like that, too, a lot of times. So,
right.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. So Family Matters. And you said you had one more thing before we close it out?
Yeah. I just think we should address the conclusion of Conan O'Brien's television career, an illustrious
1994.
What's the term? Person in TV history, really. One of the better comedians on TV.
Hashtag Team Coco forever.
Team Coco. Some really funny stuff and the end of an era. Too bad that his last few years were marred by that whole Jay Leno nonsense, but he still made the best of it.
It's been 11 years since he moved to TBS. Yeah.
But he still made the best of it and continued to produce great content and continues with this podcast and whatnot. But
he's moving on to a HBO Max series, but yes, he's no longer on late night. And I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but he is my definitive late night host.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He was the perfect combination of intelligence, compassion, and had his finger on the pulse, even if he didn't understand what it was.
And it was, a lot of times it was satire, but it was actually funny. It wasn't just like complainy,
Yeah. Like Clueless Gamer, he would go out and play modern video games, be terrible at it, but he would have a fun time doing it.
Right. And anytime where he went and just like visited a place, I always found it funny. Like he did, he went to an American Girl doll store. That clip
is one of the best.
I'm dying that whole time in that clip. And then he did guest on My Favorite Murder, and that was an excellent episode. I think it was to promote, because he was just starting Coco Needs a Friend, or no, Conan Needs a Friend. Conan O'Brien needs a friend. Team Coco. Yeah, anyway, sorry. Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. So he was kind of cross promoting it, but he's also a big true crime guy and was actually apparently in the courtroom at the John List trial, which is like this big serial killer. So I want to find video or photo evidence of that.
Hard to miss. Yeah. And this week there's just been an outpouring of Conan love on Instagram and just people sharing stories of their time on Conan. And it's really cool to see a lot of people just be like, a lot of late night hosts don't try or like don't care about their musical guests, or like it's a daily show. So it's like they don't do the research, or they don't put in the time or the effort or remember their guests. But Conan was someone that did. And it's sad, you're right, that he got the shaft. Screw Jay Leno. But it allowed him to go to TBS and keep making the content he wanted for 10, 11 years.
No, and I think the late night model eventually is going to fizzle out. I mean, they're still kind of doing it, but it just seems like a
most people
breed.
Our age watch anything from late night on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's becoming the new model, but it doesn't seem sustainable because you're just posting your show for free on the internet. No,
I know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what the future is going to be, but they've been on for a long time, so maybe they'll find a way to stay around.
Mm-hmm. Gotta be relevant. All right, so that's it for this week's edition of Namely 90s. Remember, you can find new episodes out every Monday. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at Namely90s or the 90s, or on our personal accounts at bschwitty and at Namely Andrew, and tell us what you want us to talk about on future episodes. If you would like to support the show, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Namely90s, also with a 90s. Finally, you can also contact us through our website, namely90s.com. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Team Coco, Deezer, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcasts at. I'm Brandon, that's Andrew, and we'll catch you next time.
hashtag full screen